Welcome to Gospel Tangents, the best source for Mormon history, science, and theology. I'm Rick Bennett. David Hall says many of Joseph's revelations use William Tyndale's 1530 English, not King James Version English, which was 100 years later. Why is that? Well, David says that we need to understand the definitions William Tyndale used in order to understand some of Joseph's revelations. Check out our conversation.
But if you go through the language of the plat and retranslate it into 1530 early modern English, like's been done for the Book of Mormon, right? Then, in fact, that's what the Book of Mormon was written in too, just like the plat. Now, mile is an English mile, which is 6,336 feet. Street is a public square, and on and on and on. And now you can translate it correctly.
Well, you mentioned also to me earlier that the word bishop meant banker.
Yeah. Well, in 1530, there was no difference between church and state, right?
Okay.
The problem is the restoration happened when church and state were separate, right? And Joseph's trying to put it together and it's not working, right?
So a lot of times we talk about, Joseph Smith used King James English.
No, he used Tyndale English.
Yeah, and so why, because King James, so why 1530 English? Is it William Tyndale?
Well, Tyndale did the English Bible that went to the world, right? And the Lord wants them to be companions, right? So you've got the English Bible by Tyndale and the English Book of Mormon done in the same language that together go to the world.
Okay, so that's why Joseph was using 1530 English for the Book of Mormon?
Yeah, he didn't know it.
Yeah.
The Lord, we've learned, gave it to him, right?
Okay.
It wasn't a translation. Come on, that word should have never been used.
What should have been used?
That really screws us up when we think he's translating.
So you're saying that we should not consider the Book of Mormon a translation, it should be a revelation?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what it's described, right? I mean, everybody who saw it firsthand said, it was done by the gift and power of God, number one, and it was given to him, right?
Okay.
He saw it.
Okay.
He wasn't going to the plates and trying to translate it. The plates were off. And that's true. I mean, he tried and tried and tried with the papyri for the Book of Abraham and stuff like that. If you go into his minutes and everything, he was trying. He was going and trying to learn. He failed miserably. And finally, when he gave up on all that and just received it as a revelation, that's why we have the books. And we are nuts to try and put it to those documents. That's silly. You're just going to leave the church if you go that way. Because it doesn't fall together. Joseph Smith was not a translator. He was a seer. And that's it.
So I know a lot of critics are going to say, then what was the point of having the plates there in the first place, if it was just a revelation?
Joseph Smith never was able to do anything without a prop. And I think that's true for most seers. You need something. Come on, he's a mystic, right? Okay. He and his associates were using divining rods and seer stones, and you needed that to get up the faith.
And so he needed the papyrus for the Book of Abraham in order to receive a revelation. Why didn't he do that with Genesis and the Joseph Smith translation?
Well, if you look at his process of going through that, he really studied that out, but he still messed up a lot. He used, some of the Bible, scholar things from at the time for a lot of what...
Adam Clark.
Yeah, and stuff like that. So he was just trying to figure it out, right? Because he was commanded to, right? But we better be real careful about saying it was all revelation.
Okay.
I mean, because that'll get you in trouble.
Are you going to be in trouble?
Oh, I'm always in trouble.
All right. So, so this is great. So we've got the 24 temples in there. And the idea was Joseph wanted 100,000 people, both in Kirtland and in Independence.
And I don't think he was thinking 100,000.
Oh, you don't?
I think the thought process he had in his mind, he was thinking rural. He was thinking like a lot of the historians say. And if you notice the revisions he does, and he quickly did revisions. Joseph Smith was big on revisions. And watch out for any revision. Anywhere he went, all right? Get back to the original. But you see within a week, he's making revisions, and within a month, it's down to one temple. Go look at the Joseph Smith papers. You see it happen.
Now,
right there.
Yeah, now you mentioned something, hopefully we can talk about this, because you've got a poster over here that we were looking at that has kind of the city of Zion. It's kind of diamond shaped, and you had said that they didn't publish the original plot until recently. Can you tell us why that was?
Well, in my view, the original plot is the true revelation. That came from a seer, okay. Right? Then Oliver Cowdery made the same. He says, "Well, that was done in haste. That's terrible," right? Oliver Cowdery thought it was terrible. Partridge thought it was terrible. Nobody liked it. It was just totally out of their context, right?
Because it was a brand new design. Didn't make sense.
Did not make sense at all to them. Okay. Funny dimensions, perches and rods, not the real mile, right? 24 buildings, a big bunch of things, 960 apartment buildings. That's not them, right? That's not Nauvoo, that's not Kirtland, that's nothing. That's
because they want to have
that's a future.
A house with an acre yard that they can, plow and whatever and do their thing.
Yeah, so I've had some historians say, no, it says only one house per lot. And then I'll say, well, yeah, but there's got to be a lot of people there. Well, they're probably polygamists, right? So I'll hear this kind of stuff. No. There's 100 people on that lot, and it's only a half an acre. That's denser than Singapore. Okay. It's totally outside of their thinking, but it was for the future. It wasn't for their time only. Okay. They were commanded to get going and to have a beginning. Beginning is used over and over again, and if you don't carefully include that word, you start to think that, for instance, that they didn't fulfill the prophecy of building a temple in that generation. Of course they did. Kirtland and Nauvoo. The place in Independence is just a beginning. It says that. Why do we try and bring it all back to Independence all the time? And the plat says that the communities are supposed to be worldwide and for all men. This is 1833, right there on the plat. None of the other plats said that. So I think we're scared to death of the real plat and the real house design because it calls us to something we don't think we can do. Way beyond it. It's way beyond a Sunday school class or a Sunday church. It's the whole system, economy, social, the whole deal. You have to tackle every problem. And that's why there's 480 independent positions, and why you have to learn your duty and act in the office. You can't just be a slothful guy. So it's amazing though, but it's easier to be a Sunday school class.
Yeah. All right, so I love what you said there about this was denser than Singapore. So tell us, because you created actual plans to kind of rebuild this. So how would that happen?
Well, I've made mistakes myself, and some of you might be aware of my Vermont catastrophes. So I tried to buy 5,000 acres of land around the Joseph Smith Monument in Vermont and got toasted pretty good for that. Even the church came out against me, so it was not a good idea. I've sold it off now and I'm out of Vermont, but the Vermont legislature in their state capital unanimously at the Senate and Congress level condemned me.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Because you were actually going to build the city of Zion in Vermont.
Well, 100 years from now, just one of many, right? So in my view, it's worldwide, everywhere, not just Independence. Okay. But I couldn't convince them that. They thought I was going to start right away, and I was just conserving land. But they never caught on to that. And I had 1,500 acres. I was well on my way, all around the monument, but I've had to sell it off. They actually cursed my land by any rock wall on the land, I couldn't move it. That's what the legislature passed.
Oh, wow. Because they've got rock walls everywhere.
Oh, everywhere. Every one of my lands had rock walls on it, the old ones to keep the sheep in.
Yeah, I grew up in New Hampshire, so I saw those all over the place, yeah.
So I was done, right? I was definitely cursed. So I definitely, you can't do what even Joseph Smith and Brigham Young tried.
Right.
You can't do a community. The LDS Church cannot do this, all right? And even Brigham Young and Joseph Smith said that this has to come from the population as a whole, not through the church. So that's why I'd never call it Zion or any of that. I call it New Vista Concepts.
Okay.
And then all I'm trying to do is pieces and parts of it, right? There's plenty of problems to solve, everything from agriculture to medicine to housing to public buildings to economics. I mean, on and on and on. So nobody's anywhere close to being able to build one. Not even close. It's off in the future. So, for instance, I have a product right now that lifts things for your garages. It's under Smarter Home, and we're selling the products. Those lifters are needed in the adaptive housing units so that you can live in much lower square foot by having it adapt to you instead of having a whole bunch of rooms. So we're working on tiny bits of the project. But I'm also trying to publish enough that people start to catch on to how neat this is and how exciting it is.
Yeah. And I know this is what's driving all your businesses because
they're all spin-offs from the overall idea.
I hope you enjoyed our conversation with David Hall, chairman of Hall Labs. In our next conversation, we're going to talk about a capitalistic form of consecration.
Remember, in a Zion type of community, if you've studied the history of the church, the community owns everything, not individuals, right? You get a stewardship.
So this is
of
kind
business.
of consecration, right?
Well, but not the way we think of it.
Okay.
Because we think of consecration as communalism, and that's because Sidney and Joseph were both communalists.
Right.
And that's totally false. Communalism's not correct.
Okay.
And Brigham Young tried it and failed and failed and failed, right?
Okay.
That's not the law. The law is the community's the capitalist. And that's why you have three bankers. You've got a capital bank, you've got an industrial bank, and you've got a commercial bank. So when you contribute or invest in the community, you get a deed back, right?
If you'd like to hear the entire interview uncut, please subscribe to patreon.com/gospeltangents for just $5 a month. Patreon is spelled patreon.com/gospeltangents. If you'd like to watch the entire video, you can subscribe at YouTube, Patreon, or on my website at gospeltangents.com and click the yellow subscribe button for just $8 a month. PDF transcripts are just $10 a month, and you can get those on patreon.com/gospeltangents or on my website. I'll send those to you as soon as I've finished completing it. If you'd like to get a paperback and PDF, just subscribe for $20 a month at either Patreon or on my website. Individual paperbacks are available at Amazon.com. Just do a search for Gospel Tangents Interview, and you can find all of our past interviews there. Show your Gospel Tangents pride by purchasing a t-shirt on our website at gospeltangents.com/shop. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts at tinyurl.com/gospeltangents. You can get our latest updates by friending me at Facebook, or you can also follow our page at facebook.com/gospeltangents. Become an insider and you can see the newest videos. Follow us on Twitter at Gospel Tangents. Click here to subscribe, here for a transcript, and over here we've got some of our great videos. Thanks again.